Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special edition of Uncover California. It's been a while. Sometimes things in life hit you like you don't expect them to. I've been married to the most amazing guy for 27 years. And 3 weeks ago, I hear him calling out to me at 3 a.m. We put him in the car, rushed him to the hospital to sit in an emergency room, and they did a CT scan and found a mass on his brain. They then rushed us to Glendale Adventist, where we did get a great surgeon who did an emergency surgery on this tumor and did remove it. However, it is what they call glioblastoma. Glioblastoma is a terminal brain cancer. And I've never asked for help in my life. And already we're seeing surprise billing, and we are going to go after some of the trials and things like that. We don't know what insurance will cover and what it won't. My husband's been the sole provider in my family, so I could be here with you, and I could go knock on doors and be vice chair of the Republican Party out here. Well, the only mission I have now is getting my husband well, if God permits. I'm going to need your help. We're going to be doing a GoFundMe, and once we have that set up, we'll put it below by the time this video comes out. If you find it in your hearts that you want to help us in this journey, because again, I've been a volunteer for 3 years, and my husband's going to be starting radiation, chemotherapy, and then any trial that we can get into. We tried to get into Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong's trial, but unfortunately, because he hasn't had radiation or chemotherapy, they're not taking him. So I've got 5 dogs to support. I've got a household to support. And my husband, even 2 days after surgery, was speaking at church, just full of God and the Holy Spirit. And even now, he's working. But tomorrow, I don't know where that goes. And if you guys would like to donate to our Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe or whatever we set up, we'd highly appreciate it. But I want all of you guys to meet the love of my life that I met 27 years ago. I couldn't have asked for a better husband. And meet my husband, Andrew Mills. Hi, Andrew.
G'day, Lori.
Well, this has been a journey. You and I met 29 years ago at a U2 concert. You were on tour with them, and I was front row because my sister just so happened to take me. Tell everybody about that experience.
Yeah, so on tour with U2 on the Pop Mart tour. I've been in the music industry over 35 plus years, toured with a lot of bands over the years. I did 3 years with Metallica on the Black Album. I happened to live in Europe at the time when I was on tour with U2. Came to North America. We did a show in Oakland, and Laurie happened to be in the audience in the front row in the B stage. And I was going around doing lighting checks before the show started, and saw her in the audience and thought she was one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. And she actually had something she wanted to have signed for a friend, and she called me over.
Yeah, it was Live Aid. Live Aid program for my friend Lisa.
And she actually took a photo of me as I was walking up to her. So she actually got a photo of me just as we first met. So we struck a conversation, and I just thought she was gorgeous and beautiful, and was willing to help out whatever it was. And then we had another show in LA after Oakland, and I said to her, "You're going to be at the LA show?" She said, "Yeah, I'll be at the LA show." So I said, "Okay, well, meet me at the sound booth," and she came, did the LA, she came over, and then I ended up having breakfast with her the next day, thinking it was just going to be me and her, and
No, it never
hoping
was.
and it ended up being 10 of her friends and everything else. But we sort of had a relationship via the phone for a period of time, and then went back to Europe to do the European leg. Princess Di died during that, and then Laurie had called me up and said, sorry about your princess dying, because he lived in the UK. My parents are English.
He invited me to go to Miami.
Yeah, so we had a North American leg starting back up at the end of Europe, and we were doing our first show starting up in Miami, and I invited her to come out and just wanted to get to know this wonderful lady, and that sort of started our courting, I guess, from that perspective. And
I understand this though, you guys. It's so funny because I go out there, knowing this guy via the phone, and I get out to Miami. Bono's having a luau. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so fun. And I get out there and I've got the flu, and I was sick as a dog. And he ran around town getting me all kinds of soups, chicken noodle soup, and some of the soups weren't so good. And he kept searching for that soup and just totally took care of me. And that's when I knew I had somebody really special that would always have my back and always be in my corner, which he has been.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like I said, it was love at first sight, and I knew that this was my life partner, and God had put her into my life, and at the time I wasn't saved. I think my journey with my relationship with my wife and our marriage definitely changed that hugely. Laurie has always had a very strong relationship with the Lord, and was saved before we met. And I was lucky enough to have a partner that had that sort of relationship that, ultimately it's everyone's individual as to how they pursue that and want to pursue that. And it just helps in a marriage being that equally yoked and having that same level of intimacy and relationship with God that definitely makes your marriage more fruitful. And, at the time she was in Orange County, we were going to Calvary Chapel. Pastor Chuck Smith was my first pastor. And we were going to service there. And then, we used to live in Orange County, used to drive and work in LA every day.
Oh, you're way ahead though, because understand I had a 9-year-old daughter that you basically took as your own.
Yeah.
You took her into your arms, and we're not in Orange County yet. We were courting. You were still on tour, flying back and forth. You toured with the Goo Goo Dolls and Rod Stewart after that, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. But you were so present in our lives and so accepting. And probably within the year, you decided to walk away from being on the road with rock bands and living in Europe, and you gave it up, all of it, for me and Brittany, which was something I never expected from anybody. So you decided to propose.
Well, I knew, right, within a year. It's like, we hadn't been together that long, but I knew you were my lifelong partner.
Yeah.
And to me, proposing and formalizing it through marriage was important to me. I wanted to have that next level of relationship, and that time in my life it was ready for that commitment. And also the time too, obviously I'd been on the road for so long that coming off and having some normalcy in life with formerly a nuclear family and doing those things really make a difference. And I knew if I was going to maintain going on the road all the time, generally doesn't work out for a lot of people when they're never home and they're always vacant in that sort of relationship. So it was important for me to come off the road and get some stability, and moved from the UK over here. We went through the whole rigmarole of getting the appropriate visas for me to still be able to work here and do all those sort of things. But I was just so blessed to have both you and Brittany in my life, and just forming that family and moving it forward. So Just
And I
once
couldn't
again,
have asked for a better husband.
well, and
God
I could ask
chose
for a
you
better
for
wife.
me. Dating was pretty insane. We traveled the world with you to Canada, Australia. It was really fun. But once you left the road and we were living in San Clemente, you took a job with, gosh, what company was
It was
that?
very light. Yeah.
Verilight, and you used to drive from San Clemente all the way to Sun Valley. And I think that's where you got saved finally, was in the car. Because
It
you
was.
used to drive all the, like a 2 hour drive to and from work every day, but you were super happy that you got your BMW, even though he did drive on the wrong side of the road a couple times and totally freaked me out. Remember that time you had to cross
Yes.
the center
Yeah.
divider? So we got married, and we've had an amazing life. I can honestly say, you guys, in 27 years that we've been married, I can count on both of my hands how many times we've even had an argument.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because you've always given me the freedom to be me. And I think I've done the same for you. But we talk about things and we pray together, and we never call each other names. We've never gone into character assassination. And the fights that we've had have been really stupid.
Uh-huh.
What do you think of like that stupid desk? Remember
Yeah.
the desk? Yeah, that was a good one. Tell everybody why you think, because for those of you that are thinking about getting married, or maybe you're in a marriage that's turbulent, what do you think has been the most important aspect to our marriage?
I think the most important aspect is two things. First, I think the journey for me, and even just going through what we're going through right now, is having God as a foundation, as Jesus as your foundation first, is the most important thing, because that is the compass that sort of will guide you and embrace what you need as a couple to work together. There's always ups and downs in marriage. There's always challenges presented to you, whether it's financial ones, health ones. So it starts with that first, and each relationship with God is each to our own. Your relationship is different to mine, but we both look to seek that and have that as part of our center to our marriage. And that was one of the things that actually, interestingly enough, when I remember going through marriage counseling when we got married, is just before, and speaking to the pastor about that and how important it was. And really did sort of lean in and embrace that from that perspective. So it starts with God first. And I think with everything right now, the more that we all sort of lean into that more readily and embrace that, the more fruitful your life will become, both for yourself, for your family, everything else. And I think one of the things that we've been blessed with is I've actually had good pastors through our journey. Pastor Chuck Smith was amazing. I think listening to the pastors that I would listen to on the car driving from Orange County up to LA, whether it was Greg Laurie, Skip Isaac, Rolls Reese, just a lot of good teachers that open your eyes and ears and really provide that insight in your journey with getting to have a more intimate relationship with Jesus. So it starts there. I think the other thing for me, for it's important to a marriage, is the willingness to serve each other and do it graciously and do it without that. I mean, I have two things in my life that I sort of work towards, and same thing with employees. If I have employees, I always say, you don't work for me, I work for you. And my job is to make sure you're successful as an employee. Obviously, as a wife, I want to ensure you're successful as a wife and mother and all those sort of things, and do it in a way that I'm here to, be your servant.
And you always have put me first.
Yeah.
And I hope I've done that for you too.
100%.
6 years into our marriage, my daughter at that point was 16 years old, our daughter. And I never thought that we would have children. And then one day I'm at work and I told my sister, I feel sick. I'm nauseated. I'm tired. And she looked at me and goes, you're pregnant. And we rushed over to her house, and they had all this construction going on, and she had me take the test. And I was like, oh my gosh, this changes everything. And we welcomed our little boy, who's now a man and a Marine, into this world. And he's an amazing kid. And you have been a fantastic father to our kids, and it changed everything. But you and I have been through so many different journeys. We've had the blessings and the hardships, and God has carried us through them all. I think about the time, and you guys remember the 2008 bubble burst. We lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
We lost our home. And I, being a native Californian that never lived anywhere else, God took us through your job to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where we lived amongst the Amish. And even that, in hindsight, was a gift from God, but for someone else. Tell everybody.
For both of us. It was still for both of us.
Well, I think it was for Sue.
Well,
though.
it was, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we get this great property, and it huge home, 8 acres, barn, and out there it's a lot cheaper, so don't think it was this multi-million in California fiasco. But we were going through this, and I started rescuing horses, another thing you let me do. Fixed up this barn, and I used to do Church of the Barn because the Mennonite and Amish churches, I really didn't relate to them, but I could still do my church in the barn. And I'd sit out there and shovel horse poop. And one day this woman came up the driveway who lived out front of our house in another home, all dressed in Amish clothing. And I'll never forget, she looked at me and she said, "You're a Christian?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, why don't you cover your head?" And I said, "Because I'm not under Roman law and I'm not a prostitute." And slowly, Sue, who I consider a sister to this day, started not wearing the Amish gear. What did you see in that whole thing? Because you were dealing with work while I was shoveling horse poop.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you live in Lancaster and you have, the Amish and the Mennonites and what they consider religion and how they go about their life. I do think, it's actually quite, interesting to watch them and how they do go about in their living. And, there's some actually very admirable things that they do that I'm quite envious of, like living off the grid, being completely independent. They have a very tight-knit community. They, when you see a community like if a barn burns down, literally not even 10, 12 hours later, you'll have 80, 90 Amish people show up, and they will literally build it in no time.
In a day or two.
In a day. And they have a way that they self-finance each other and basically have their own banking network, whatever it is, to go do that.
Do you know what amazed me out there? It was Christmas time, and I took all those women around to the different barns where they would Christmas shop, and they would have barns full of items, and no one would be there mending the store. They would just say, "Drop your money in the donation box." Like, there was no crime in that community either.
No, very much the honor system, and they were sort of, work that way. So,
and then tell them how they used to, Daniel King used to come over and plow our field because you decided you wanted to grow our own food.
Yeah, so one of the things, obviously, having a small hobby farm, for lack of a better term, for where we lived in Lancaster, I was definitely into wanting to grow some of my own food, and we would have our Amish neighbour come up, and I had a decent plot, and they would bring up their mules and donkeys and their hand plows.
Yep.
And I'd say, "Okay, let's go plow this field for me so I can get ready to plant my crops coming up for spring." And we absolutely loved it. I mean, the quality and taste of food. I'm actually ready right now because of what I'm going through. And, one of the challenges we all deal with today is the highly treated processed food, and what a difference it is when you do grow your own food. You can literally taste the difference.
You can.
And it's gratifying to walk out to your backyard and pull food out and then consume it. And it's, effectively, it's, apart from paying for the seeds and the labor that you put into it, it's free.
Yeah.
But
and it does taste so much different than the stuff you buy at the store.
So, and having them come around and do all those sort of things. And also you would share things as well on food or things that you would have. One of our neighbours had an egg farm, and then, other things as well. So they had
the Land O'Lakes farm was literally down the street from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we had, and you would lie in bed at night and you would hear the clip-clops of the horses and the carriages, and it was actually very therapeutic from that, hearing that in at night.
The covered bridges.
Yeah.
It was beautiful
It
there.
was beautiful there. God put us there for a reason.
Sue.
And when Laurie talks about Sue, unfortunately, her husband at the time ended up dying.
Well, let's not go there yet because more happened. Because this is an important part of the story, I think, was when Sue would come up and she would slowly started dressing in American clothes, store purchased clothes. And she told me that her husband wasn't providing for her and the children. Like, he was verbally abusive to her. And so I asked her to start cleaning our house. And so she started cleaning our house, and I started selling real estate out there and started getting her work. And Sam came up to the house one day so mad. And he looked at me and he slammed his hand on our counter and said, "What are you saying to my wife? She needs to submit to me." And I said, "Sam, you're forgetting something super important. You're to love her as Christ loved the church." Then what happened next happened. So go on with that part.
So, he was going through this. He was struggling with Laurie's relationship with Sue because he saw a transformation in Sue. And it was a transformation, I guess, not just to...
She was becoming more independent.
Yeah, well, getting a sense of independence and having the strength to, be her own person, but also just reevaluating her own relationship with the Lord and rethinking that. And it goes back to that personable relationship that we all want to seek and have, and not so much a religious structured relationship, but more importantly, it's that intimate one-on-one relationship. So, he really struggled with that, and I would have some conversations with him sometimes on that, and sort of going back to the idea that you can't, you have to serve your wife and not just the other way around from that perspective, and treat it like the bride of Christ.
So back there, I was coaching soccer, and one day we were at one of Christian's games, and we get a phone call from Sam, and he had been in a car accident. You went and picked him up. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, so he got involved in a car accident. He had his actual kids in the car. Well, actually, it was a truck, like a Ram truck or whatever it was. And basically, he refused to get medical attention. He actually took a pretty good hit on the vehicle. Kids were lucky, no injury. It was pretty much a write-off. And I implored him to go, you need to go to the emergency room and get yourself looked at, because you don't know what internal injuries you may have suffered during that accident. And he absolutely refused, didn't want to do it. He was actually on some painkillers for a previous condition that he had around that. And, really tried hard. And I was working with the paramedics because I actually went and picked him up at the accident site, and none of us could get him to capitulate to, going to do the right thing. So anyway, I ended up having to take him home. And I remember the next day at work, I got a phone call.
Well, it wasn't that, though, because I went and I got his stuff out of his car and reiterated what you said. I got a call at 7 a.m. that day, and Sue said, "He's not breathing." and ran down to the house, and he was cold. And I don't know if you were at work by
No,
then.
I was at work when I took the phone call.
Okay, yeah.
And then that's when it all sort of unfolded that he'd actually passed during the night through his injuries
Right.
and what his
Internal
medication.
bleeding.
Yep.
And everything. But understand this, guys. The reason we're even telling you the story is how God works. If we had not moved out there, if Sue had not built a business, more than likely she would have been sucked back into the Amish community. And when the funeral happened and all these buggies started showing up, it's like this 3-day thing where they all sit in the basement and sit quietly until the bishop prays. And Andrew was doing dishes, and the men there were like, "You're a man. How can you be doing dishes?" And Andrew, once again, just the servant heart, caring for other people. And I think that they learned grace from us being there. But I think we were there for her. And there were so many miracles that happened, even with Avalanche, being paralyzed and crying in the barn, "Lord, why don't I have faith?" And coming up and she's standing. That's a whole other story.
And by the way, Avalanche is our husky.
Yeah, she was one of our
She's our
huskies.
dog.
We rescue a lot of
Yeah.
huskies. After that happened, God called us home again. And our son became a Marine. I've never seen you more proud.
Absolutely. Proudest day of my life was
Yeah.
seeing my son graduate from boot camp.
From boot camp. 2 weeks after he graduated high school, he entered boot camp. And also while we were in Pennsylvania, I was totally apolitical. And Andrew is the one that got me into politics. So in reality, me being this volunteer podcaster, you have a lot to do with that, because before then I didn't care about anything. And you got me involved in the Ron Paul Lovolution.
Yep. Yeah, so, politically, I've lived around the world. I've lived in multiple countries. Obviously, moving to the States, I actually started to, really wasn't that involved in American politics. Really didn't vote or anything. I wasn't a citizen at the time, and I couldn't. But I listened to this congressman called Ron Paul, and I was just amazed at the honesty in what he was talking to and what he was saying on the floor. And he really understood politics at a different level and really opened the door for where we are today, with the Tea Party. I actually look at him as the actual founder of the Tea Party more than anything else.
And then it got taken over by the establishment.
It got overtaken by the establishment, but fundamentally understanding the Federal Reserve, fractional lending, and the Constitution as a foundation of what this country was based on. And I was in awe of his, like I said, honesty in what he was always willing to stand for. And I think watching him in his 2 presidential campaigns really, we talk about Donald Trump today and what he's done in exposing the media and all the other things around it. But really, for me, Ron Paul was the door that really opened your eyes.
Yeah, and it was the first campaign I ever worked on was his campaign.
I
And
think
then I got elected as a committee woman for that Republican Party in Ephrata Township. But then we came home and I got back into real estate until COVID, and I found out they taught our son about sex toys in school. And you allowed me to walk away from my business and run for the state assembly. Our son's vote never arrived, by the way, that he mailed in after boot camp. And then I started being stalked by this indivisible group and the Antifa group. And I didn't feel really safe going back into real estate, meeting people at houses. And because of you, I've been able to sit in this chair and talk about child trafficking, talk about the open borders, talk about so many issues to get the truth past the lie. And that's all because of you. And so let's rewind 3 weeks and tell everybody, because in the beginning we thought you had a virus, or you thought you had a virus.
So let me just walk through
Yeah,
it,
so
right?
walk through
I
it.
had, a couple of things for me. I think, the timeline for me, the predicate or the time that I set it to is actually Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us that have that relationship with the Lord, and it really affected us with Charlie's assassination. And one of the things that just, when we talk about the timeline of what do you remember when, whether it was 9/11, I was too young, obviously, for the JFK assassination, but periods in time where Lady Diana dying, there's things in time which you can associate. Where was I at the time I heard the news, and what was the effect to it? And Charlie's death had a very profound effect on so many people, and I think for all of us that had, once again, a relationship with the Lord, understood the gravity of it, and also what Charlie really saw, and particularly in going back to that, to have a foundational relationship with God and Jesus was so important in our society at so many different levels, both at a geopolitical level, both at a family level. I just remember when Laurie called me, I was going between offices saying, oh, Charlie's been shot. And I remember getting into my office and then unfortunately seeing the initial footage and knew that it wasn't going to be a good outcome from that perspective. So really affected me. I don't think I've cried so much over it, just the whole thing. That was a very emotional thing for me, and that drained a lot out of me. But then I also just didn't start feeling well, and I felt something was going on in my body that wasn't right. And we had a bunch of COVID going around the office and other things. So I thought, do I have a virus? What's going on? So finally I said, you know what, I'm going to go to the doctor and try and get this sorted out, because I wasn't feeling right. And it really for me was whether it was a kidney issue or a liver issue, I just felt my body wasn't processing properly, and I couldn't feel good. So
during that time, though, you kept complaining you had because I want people, in case they're going through what you're
Right.
going through, to recognize symptoms that we didn't recognize. For instance, the metallic taste in your mouth, the headaches.
Yeah, so the symptoms for me was, I was not getting a good night's sleep. I was having what I call a fever-based sleep, where my mind was just in this weird state, like as if you were in a fever. And I felt I had trouble regulating my body temperature from that perspective. I had no appetite, and then I had a metallic taste to the food that I was eating from that perspective. And then I started having some cognitive issues that I wasn't really picking up on, like, oh, I missed the exit to the off-ramp to my office or to home, whatever it was from that perspective. And interestingly enough, right up to when this all started to go down was, I really had to pay attention to my driving and making sure that I'm really aware of my surroundings, and that my brain isn't on autopilot, what it normally is for most people when they drive.
And in the meantime, I didn't know any of that was going on.
Yeah. So bottom line of it was, I knew I needed to go get sorted out, because I really was tired of feeling as sick as what I was. And even the people at work were commenting that I wasn't myself, and I had a greyish colour to me, and was just not run down and not my usual self. So I ended up going to urgent care. One of the first things that came out of that was I had high blood pressure. So one of the other symptoms was I had high blood pressure.
They threw pills at you.
Yeah, so I got a blood pressure medication to go do that, and then I basically told the doctor, I said, look, I really need to get a blood panel done. I had actually done one a few months ago. I'm 56 years old, so trying to be preventative in my health and staying on top of it. So they ran the blood panel. They drew blood on Friday. I was meant to go in and get the results on that on Tuesday. I was on the blood pressure med. And then Monday came round, went to bed, got up about 3 in the morning because I'm an early riser. And I ended up passing out on my living room floor, getting woken up by 6 huskies licking my face, going around it. But I yelled out to my wife and I said, Laurie, you're going to have to take me to the ER. And in a weird way, that was God's blessing that happened, because of what it did do, because I did take a fall when I got to ER, was they did a CT scan of my head. And I remember just lying in the hospital, on the hospital bed when the doctor came in and looked at both me and Laurie and said, there's a mass on my brain and we need to get it out as soon as possible from that perspective.
This, and we'll put up an image of his scan, but his entire brain was being pushed to the right. That was the last thing I expected this doctor to come in to say to us. We thought it was your kidney or something.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude, I'll give you a kidney.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I mean, it's, you know, when you plug in your symptoms, everyone does these days. You're going to put it into Chat GTP or AI of some form to do it. And interestingly enough, on what I'd plugged in there was leaning towards a liver issue as to why my body wasn't processing toxins or whatever it was. I just didn't have brain tumor on my bingo card as to why I was having the issues that I had. So two things when I was told this lying in the hospital bed. And I'm going to go back to my journey. Going back to
you're shady on the memory of certain
I'm
things.
saying things to things, but going back to where I was at when I was lying in the room and I was told this, and I'm going to go back to Charlie's situation for a minute. So, you know, interestingly enough, Charlie's assassination almost prepared me for this in a lot of ways. We would watch the Charlie Kirk Memorial before this all went down. And I said this at our church service after I had surgery. I thought the worship in that service was one of the most amazing things I've ever heard in my life. And it really was a bridge, a conduit to a direct conversation with God. And when you listen to that worship and you listen to the Holy Spirit that was in that auditorium,
God inhabits
arena,
the praises of his people.
It really blessed me, and it really sustained me through this. Because the first thing that came in when I was told was I just had Chris Tomlin's song singing. Oh God, I can't.
He sang "Holy,"
Holy God Almighty, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the hymn was in my head.
Yeah.
It was directly touched me, and it actually gave me a peace. And the two things that I had peace to immediately with that news, and I can remember looking at you as the doctor was saying this and watching the blood drain out of your face when you were confronted with the fact that I've got something that's at a different level and had life implications or death implications to what it was. First of all, I had closure to what was going on. I finally knew what was going on. Okay, this is what's going on with me. You know, part of the initial conversation with the ER doctor was, well, we're going to evac you to Glendale, and they put me in an ambulance.
And it was cold.
It was really cold. It was really cold. I had a lot of lateral pressure on my brain and on the top of my head, and once I understood that, I really couldn't wait for this surgery to happen to get it dealt with as soon as possible. And I remember looking at the nurses and the doctors in the hospital room saying, when are you going to get me in surgery? When are you going to get me in surgery? I was really wanting that to happen. You get confronted with that. I'm in a complete haze for the whole thing. Meanwhile, my wife's
one thing I noticed while you were going through this is you kept leaning left. Mm-hmm. Like you almost were slouching left the whole time. Like you had lost control of the left side of your body. And I was a mess, you guys. I was praying, crying. I mean, the only thing I could do was listen to worship music and just every 5 minutes go, God help me. God help us get through this. So go on.
So anyway, we're at the Glendale Hospital. I vaguely remember a conversation with the doctor, the surgeon.
You were done.
I was pretty much done. I remember being wheeled into the operating theatre and seeing all the anaesthesiologists and saying, okay, we're going to put you under. You're going to go through there, and then coming out of it and going into ICU. And I think I saw you as I've been wheeled out.
When you came out of surgery and they brought you to the ICU, yes, we were there.
Yeah.
And the people were praying, and there were some really good people there.
Yeah, no,
but we did learn a lot about this process too. Yes. That you've got advice for people.
Well,
now.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you immediately get confronted with on these sort of things. Is, you know, first of all, hugely thankful to the surgeons, the hospital staff that did my surgery. I mean, I'm here, I'm talking right now. Yeah. And it's through them and obviously the Lord first that I'm here to testify to that. And I'm really grateful for that side of it. But what's quite interesting when you do go through this, There's a few things that people do need to take into consideration,
And do it
things,
now.
and you either procrastinate, put it off, don't deal with it. One of the things is if you are in an incapacitated state, does your immediate spouse or family members have legal authority to make decisions on your behalf in a way that's in everyone's interest, meaning myself and the family themselves? And we can talk about do not resuscitate, do not hydrate, or do all those sort of things.
Or even pick up your medical
Or
records.
medical
Like I was
records.
unable to pick up his medical records, and we had to take him 2 days after brain surgery into the hospital to pick up his medical records because I, as his wife, could not do that.
So the first thing that people really do need to take into consideration, you don't by default, because you are the wife, the husband, the daughter, the son, the brother, have any sort of authority over your family member to make those types of decisions. It really does need to be done legally, and it needs to be done in a way that you have a legal binding contract that gives you the authority to do that. So that's the first thing people need to really understand when you don't want to talk about these types of things or put it off. I think it's important in a marriage or in your family relationships to understand what your wishes are of your family members in these sort of events and what they do or don't want to have happen. And that you all understand what the road is to get those sort of legal authorities put in place moving forward. Because it is very hard when you're incapacitated and you can't do these sort of things, and then what becomes very much a bureaucratic journey and being able to navigate or do those types of things easily or at great hardship to go do that. So I encourage everyone to take a step back, look at that. You'll see adverts on there for, getting will trust and all the other things, but do it and understand in the medical side of things, there's different levels of what you're authorizing the individual you want to have that medical authority over as well, and just understanding it's not just one thing; it's numerous
everything.
things. It's everything. So,
and if you don't want the state to handle your affairs, get your affairs in order. He's 56 years old. I never would have imagined. I always thought we had plenty of time, but you don't know if you're going to get killed in a car accident or anything like that. And if there's nothing in place, you have zero protection. Mm-hmm. And I would have wanted to be the one to just go do all of these things for him, pick up his medical records, not stick him in a car after brain surgery. So after the brain surgery, I found out before you did. And I remember coming in the room after your surgery, and they had already moved you back to a regular ward. And I had talked to the nurse in the hallway who wanted me to tell you the news with her. And at the same time, I knew that you and I have a deeper connection. And so as you were sitting in the bed and you looked at me and you said, "I'm so glad this is over." And I had to say, "Honey, it's not. It's not over." And you have been diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a terminal brain cancer. Mm-hmm. And right now we're blessed because in the post-MRI, they got the tumor out. But the problem is the cells that are currently in there will sprout up like weeds would. And which is why we're trying to get into all of these trials and the immunity-based bio shields and things that could help us on another level. You're getting ready to start treatment, and we're going to the hospital tomorrow.
Sure.
Tell me first how you took that news, because I've seen nothing but bravery from you. I've seen nothing but great faith in you. Like, I honestly think I've had a harder time.
No, you have. You've had a harder time with this. Look, I think for me, when the doctor did inform me that my prognosis was not good, I have a high probability of dying from this, meaning that it's an aggressive type of brain cancer that I have right now. And I looked at him matter-of-factly and said, you know what, I'm actually... I'm at peace with the knowledge, first of all, that I have a relationship with Jesus, and that, these things for me, I get the easy end of the bargain here from the perspective of once I leave and go to the Lord, I'm there.
You're in paradise.
I'm in paradise. I've sort of embraced that. And I sort of laid this at the feet of Jesus when I first went into this and sort of gave it all up thinking about it from that perspective. I'm not living in fear of that outcome that I'm going to die. I'm actually at peace with that side of it. Once again, I don't have to worry about taxes. I don't have to worry about the stupidity of politics or all the other things that we get inundated with in life. The biggest thing that I struggle with is the aftermath of what it leaves for my family members and for you, my son, my daughter, my grandson, my mum, all those sort of things. And, I'm at peace with that side of it. And I told that to the doctor. And it was interesting on the pathology report, there's a comment that he said, how did the patient take the news? And he said he actually took it quite well. I do look at this in a couple of different aspects. First of all, God does things for a reason. And a lot of the time, if you don't have a relationship with God, and people I think struggle with this, is how can you be thankful to God for your situation and be not angry at him?
He's been so present in the storm.
He has been absolutely present every single day.
Yeah.
And I really have leaned into my faith and into Jesus, and it really has sustained me. I've been blessed with the amount of support, prayers that we've had through this so far.
We go to an amazing church.
Our church is phenomenal.
Pastor Mike has been amazing.
Yeah, Pastor Micah, Pastor Rob, everyone in this church has really rallied, been communicative, and I'm just blessed that we're part of that sort of church where that's the case, and I don't lose sight of that, and I'm just blessed that we have these people in our lives.
All these ladies brought food to us the first week.
Yeah, correct. We
so
had a
kind.
meal train coming through, and just the amount of texts and good wishes and prayers, and I always tell people prayers are important. And please do pray for me. And I also sort of say that not only is a prayer for me, but it's for yourself as well, because it should strengthen your own relationship with God going through that prayer process, and know that. I've had some pretty interesting conversations since this has happened with people that I would consider, have a relationship with God, but there's still a fear to them if they're particularly in a situation where they're dealing with cancer or a situation which is terminal outcome. And I can sense the fear in some of them still with that. Whether God's, there's two things for me. I want God, first of all, I want this to be always a window, a door, an opportunity to bring people to faith and to Jesus Christ. Number one. That's the first thing. It's the saying, I want heaven full. Yeah. And that was one of the things, going back to Charlie, that he absolutely leaned into, and is so important where we're at as a country right now in the revival, and where we all need to sort of get to as having Jesus as a foundational rock that we all build from moving forward. It's the only way we're going to be successful in this country, and getting that sort of established and work. You and me, the importance of prayer. We pray every day. We pray together as a couple. We work through this. God will speak to you.
God has spoken to me.
And there's certain things, no matter how the despair is, that he is forever faithful, and he will, all things are greater to God, and I just, am just in awe of that. Yeah. And that's really, kept me going, getting through this, and know that all things are greater under God, no matter what people say. And when, I was at church on Sunday, I had brain surgery on Wednesday. I came out of that, and then I actually came to our service here on Sunday. I ended up actually getting up on stage and giving my little testimony, and really, sort of said, do you have that faith? And I want that to be used as a tool for people. I want that to, if my journey saves one person, two people, it's worth it. And I'm a very positive individual all the time. I think through adversity, you've got to find the opportunity that comes from that. That's why you have adversity in your life. God has a reason for doing these sort of things, I've had friends that have lost their kids, and I've seen the transformational change by the fact that they've formed that relationship with Jesus and the Lord, and what positive things have come out of that, even though they've suffered the loss of a loved one, and how that's propagated and created, real positive outcomes still around that. And I think in the knowledge that you're going to be with them again down the road is really important. And once again, I'm just in awe of what God has done. I've had a blessed life. I've been on this earth 56 years. I've got a great family. Had a great career.
But we're not quitting.
We're not quitting, and I'm not. I'm here for the fight, and I'm here to, if God's going to grace me with another 5 years, 10 years, whatever the time frame is, He knows what it is. It's in His book. I'm here for the ride, and like I said, I'll use every opportunity to lay it at His feet, to glorify Him, and to ensure that the right outcome for whatever it is. And just hope that people can take my story and use that as, something to incentivize them to lean into their own faith and try and have a more positive way of trying to embrace these sort of hardships from that perspective.
There's so many reasons I love you so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to say to anybody that could be watching?
You've got to always get up. You'll get knocked down through life every time, and it's what you do, pulling yourself up and pulling your bootstraps. And once again, it starts with get right with God first. Get that foundation built. And then once you've done that, you can then have a real opportunity of having a more fruitful life based off that, leaning to that as often as you can. From that perspective. And, I think for us, my journey is going to start to begin now with the treatment side of these things. And these things are never pleasant when you go through traditional medical things, through chemo and radiation. I'm definitely invested in a lot of the new technology that is being looked at, and going back to what we're trying to look at to getting in some of these clinical trials that I think do provide a good opportunity for people. And hopefully, whether my case is used or someone else's, because we did have an instance where if I don't qualify, someone else might.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I think anyone that can open a door that will provide a better outcome and hope to people on that, in a way that's sort of still based in a sense of reality to it, right? I think part of the hardest things to this is you're not in control. You don't know what the final timeline is to any of this sort of stuff, which is the most challenging thing from my perspective. Is it's not like you're provided a laid out time, or you're going to be a week, 2 weeks from now. We just don't know. So every day,
it's going to be a journey.
Every day is a blessing. You treat it as such. You embrace it every day, and thank the Lord for the fact that you've got another day here with your family and stuff. And once again, God will open doors and do things to what we need, and hopefully we get the right outcome for everyone. But just to just have that mindset, because it is mental to begin with. You've got to have a positive outlook to these things, because you won't. You will really struggle with that if you don't.
Do you have anything you want to say to our kids?
I mean, to my kids, I love you with all my heart, and I've been blessed to have my time with you on this earth, and I'm hoping to have more time with all of you and get to see my daughter, my son, my grandson. See them grow through life. If that's not the case, that's not the case, but know that, I love you, and that, use my experience to benefit your own and grow in life. Once again, I look at this as opening a door for my family to hopefully grow from as well, and not just for myself. So, and, just know that. I'm just grateful for all of them.
Well, I love you.
I love you too.
And everybody out there, obviously, I've been on a hiatus for the last few weeks, and the podcast is going to be suspended until we get through this storm. If you can help us out, I don't know if there's medical trials that insurance won't cover. And we will keep you guys apprised along the journey. This man is worth saving, and I adore him. He's kind. And if we can use his journey to help other people, we definitely want to do that. First and foremost, seek the Lord Jesus Christ. If you're prodigal, get your life right with him. You don't know what tomorrow holds, but you want to make sure you know who holds it. So until I see you all again, we love you all. And I love this guy. You guys all stay safe. Next man up.
Our dog Maya's super cute.
Yeah, our dogs are super cute.
Yeah.
And Maya loves both of us. She gets jealous.
Yeah, she's so adorable.
California.